if a soul is pulled apart, energy cannot die. And so what do you do with all the particles of energy that are just like pulled apart?
What do you do?
It is fed back into the whole.
So it's recycled?
I mean, kind of. Your emotions have energy, and it's like food for a soul that is just wandering around. And so the more it gets fed, the stronger it gets, and the more it's able to interact with people.
Wild. Okay. It's like a little soul battery.
Exactly. Oh, nice. That's a really good way of putting it. It doesn't matter if what you are seeing is real or not. It's because what matters is how it makes you feel.
Amen. One of the biggest questions, I'd post a clip about souls or whatever it may be. They say, how do you know? We're back. Round 2 with psychic medium Malaurie. We had some of your questions answered, which is why I ask you guys to engage, share your thoughts, your experiences. If you have questions, put it in the comment section on YouTube or on social media, wherever you're listening, because I wanted to address some of the thoughts and answers that y'all were seeking. Of course, I didn't get to all of them, but we talked a lot about reincarnation, the afterlife, the dying process, what she sees and understands as her truth as a psychic medium. We also brought up and answered the question in regards to what she meant about souls being ripped apart, because that was an interesting point. We talked about that at the end of the episode and many, many things that I hope I addressed some of your questions, and we will always try to get to as many as we can. So please engage in the show, share your thoughts, and hopefully have a dialogue with other people in a peaceful way, okay? Show some love. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you all for being here. If you can, write a review, subscribe, all that algorithmic stuff that I don't really understand that helps the show get out there. Thank you as usual. I'll stop talking. Let's get into the episode. Malaurie, good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
What's going on? It's like round 2, baby. Right on to round 2.
I love the new hairdo, by the way.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Like he went like full on mullet.
It's full
pretty
on
awesome.
mullet. So if anyone hasn't seen any of the videos, if you're not watching on YouTube, apparently I do have a mullet. And I was thinking on the way here, it's getting a little, now it's like I have the shirt on, so it's kind of lifting it up.
I know. It's very 1980s. I like it.
Yeah, I didn't wear my short shorts for this episode. Okay, so for anyone listening, you've been on the show before.
I have.
I probably should have remembered the episode number, but you can look up her name on my podcast, and you will find it. And I will put it in the show notes if you want to listen to round 1. I wanted to have you back just because it was fun to talk to you.
Yeah,
So
it was a blast.
Yeah.
I like it.
And so besides my personal self-interest of wanting to talk to you, I think a lot of people wanted to hear back from you. And I do have some notes, which I normally never have to look at for episodes. But there are some questions that, for anyone listening, that some people commented on YouTube and some of our episodes that I kind of went through and try to pull some of them. So we're going to be bouncing around with some questions. And then within those questions, we're going to go down another rabbit hole, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. That's what happened last time, right? We started talking. Before you know it, we were just like a mile away from where we started.
Yeah, of course. And, one of the biggest questions, let's start off with this. People were always asking, whenever I post a clip about souls or whatever it may be, they say, how do you know?
Oh my God, it's like literally I get that question so much, and then I usually answer it unless somebody's rude, and then I'm like, well, forget about it.
Yeah.
I even like posted that on my, I pinned into my page on Instagram because it was one of the main questions. How do I know? I mean, I've been in this work for like so long. I've been doing this most of my life. Take this out because literally this is the bubble.
So that's just carbonation. We're all right.
I know. But either way, it's just like, so my whole family, right? So as I said before, is on my maternal line. Like my family, they're really, really psychic and mediums. Have not really done it professionally at all. I'm the first one to kind of like step forward into the spotlight. Everybody else is sort of like doing it within their own life. Mm-hmm. And so my whole life I've been dealing with this. And then, so how do I really know? It's like, how do anybody really know? I channel the information. I hear, I see, and then it's one of those, I don't even know how to explain it. It's one of those things that it's like, I hate to tell people like, believe me, mm-hmm. right? But it's what I see is real to me, really real. So all I can speak of is the things that I see and my own truth. And then after that, I always tell people like, take what you need and leave the rest.
Yeah, I think that's the best way. You said that last time. It's like, obviously, everyone goes back to the proof. It's like, you're not here to exactly prove it, and people are going to get shaky even when I say that. But it's like, you don't have to believe anything. And then if it resonates with you, it resonates with you. And again, if you're speaking your truth, you're speaking your truth. Do me a favor. Give me, so people can see your wonderful face. Give me like a left-leaning angle when you talk to me like that. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Does that feel comfortable?
Yeah, no, totally. I wasn't sure how it worked.
Anyone listening on
I
audio
will
platforms?
do it from here. Is that good from here?
Don't even say. Yeah, you look great there. I just want to make sure.
I
just want to make sure they see your face.
Okay, no, you got it.
Okay, so one of the things that someone asked in regards, and I think I brought up a question about aliens and other life forms in the universe.
Sure.
And then one of the questions someone brought up was with other beings in the solar system. Which would you agree that there are other beings in this other?
Absolutely.
And so, if with that being the case, especially now with UAPs and UFOs showing up, whatever's going on there, whether it's what's real and what's a
Sure.
veil of people showing us, I have no idea. But with that idea of other beings in the universe, is everyone going to the same place? Is there one afterlife kind of question?
Yes. So, okay, let me back up for a second because it's like, for me, the way I see it is there is not like, I don't think there's anything within our own solar system, right?
Okay.
I think it's mostly like other solar systems, very likely. I mean, I think that if there was something within our own solar system, we would have discovered it by now, right? If it was something like as close, like people are like, oh, Venus or whatever, the moon. And I was just like, I think we would know. I think that is something that we will have figured out. But there are definitely other planets for sure, right? And so, but a soul is a soul. We all come from the same place. We all go back to the same place. It doesn't matter where your soul may have come from prior to this. And there are certain souls, and people like to give it the name such like interplanetary souls, which really are just the fact that maybe in the past few lives that you've had before, your choices had been other spaces and not Earth, right? And so you could have incarnated on many other planets. Usually the one that I have seen when I do readings with people that are more, when I'm show past life for people, and the few ones that I have seen of souls that may not be like specifically Earth-based, those souls often come from really, really gentle planets.
Gentle planets.
Very gentle. Like the people that I have spoken to that this type of past life has showed up for, it was mostly, let me think of, they were like people who struggle interacting with others, who feel incredibly sensitive, who are often like some sort of like intuition gift, that just a little deeper, a little sort of like more spiritually evolved in some way. I hate using the word evolve because I don't want to give levels
Right.
or like people to have an ego being like, oh, I'm this or I'm that. It's not that. It's just that often those souls are a little more sensitive, right? It's a little harder to navigate among this world. And one of the reasons why is because what I have seen in lives prior to this is that those souls come from planets where communication is telepathic. So there's no you and me. There's just an us. I mean, it kind of feels like a wonderful place to be, where there's no separation, and so you can't really hide who you are because your thoughts are collective thoughts, right? And so everything that you think of, everything that you do is for collective good.
That's interesting.
And so they come here, and then of course you don't remember it, but then there's this like harshness, this separation, this like, if you have more than me, then it's bad. Or there's like the lack of care for others. That's very, very common, even specifically right now. And so those souls have a lot of, it's hard.
It's an adjustment.
It's such an adjustment. And they might not realize it, but they just feel so incredibly sensitive.
It almost gives meaning to the thought when people say, I feel like I'm from another planet. I feel like I'm alien.
Exactly.
And that might get thrown around a little loosely, but who knows?
very
But
loosely.
when you explain it like that, it's like, oh, maybe I actually was sometime. Maybe I was
Yeah,
another
you
planet, so
can be.
I'm a black
You
sheep. I'm a
can
weirdo
be.
over here for that reason. Yeah, and so it answered the other question. The part that I was going to say was, do they have souls? So it's just like when you said a soul is a soul, that kind of resonated with me. So they may be like a different being, if you will, and like kind of like we are different being. We're all human species, but we are different in our own unique way. But at the end of the day, I guess going back to source, we're still just a soul is a soul.
Yeah, it was just energy. A soul is a soul. Like you go back to the same place. It doesn't matter where you're coming from, but you get to choose where you go back to, right? So if like a soul is more comfortable somewhere else, it might not choose to come here. And why come in this planet? That is a question that so many people ask. Like, if a soul was in a planet that's way more gentle and easier to live with, there's no pollution. Like, I've seen like almost like water-based planets where like in some of the past life regression that I've been shown, where it's like the air is different, the colors are more vibrant. Sometimes they're a little more dull. People look, just a little different in their body and the way they are. And it's just, everything feels more fluid.
I mean, whenever I get into a weird spot, I always look up. I always look at space because it is
Right.
incomprehensibly big. So the idea for me to think that there's nothing out there, now we're going to like the alien platform, but just even this relates to just an afterlife, in my opinion. It's like to think that there's just to say with such discern that there's nothing, to me, it just makes no sense. I mean,
Yeah.
I get it because this is all we know, but it's like it is the size of the universe. I don't even want to go to that route because I'm going to lose my mind. This mic's going to explode. But in regard,
It is huge. It is
it-
huge. And so, like, the idea to think that it would just be us is silly.
yeah. I mean, I don't buy into it, but hey, if that whatever you want to believe, people, it's all good with me. So in regards to you saying, you said something about a choice with souls or choosing where you want to go. This relates to choice. And what if you don't want to? What if you don't want your soul to exist afterwards? Is that just a human thing?
It's just a human thing. It's the same way. I get this is okay. So often I'll try to explain because let me back up for a second. My goal, right, is always to elevate people, to try to get them to think bigger than just like the little life that we have here on earth, right? Is just to show them that there's more to us than just this body. And so if you are thinking like, oh, I don't want to exist afterwards, or like I get a lot of people saying, well, I just don't want to leave because I don't want to leave my children, or I don't want to leave my spouse, or I don't want to leave my friends, or whoever that is, right? And I'm going to wait, and I don't, they're always going to be who they are. And so we have trouble as humans to just think something bigger because all we are thinking is like right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
In this moment in time, I own this and those people are my family and they're always going to be. And so people are like, they're always going to be who they were. I was just like, but that's kind of selfish.
Yeah. I mean,
Selfish of you to think that when somebody that you loved has passed on, they're just standing there waiting for you to finish your little life. I mean, I understand. I totally get it. Like, I have compassion for it. I get it. Like, I've lost people. It's very painful, as you know. Like, you have done that. But I think that we need to want for them to get bigger and for the soul to just get to the full potential of who they're supposed to be.
And that kind of segues me the idea of, okay, you're saying they might be waiting for us. Because you mentioned in the last discussion that we had something about souls lingering for a certain period of time where maybe they haven't fully crossed over.
Yeah, that happens.
And what is the reason for that? Why would a soul not immediately cross over?
Well, but sometimes it's like people feel, well, that was too fast. Like, I'm not ready. Or
On a soul
on
level,
a soul
they're
level,
not ready.
like even like, so here's the thing: it's like when you die, your soul lifts out of your body, and then that energy core that you've had since the soul got into it gets cut off, right? And then here you are, this wandering energy, basically. But it's kind of like almost scientific, right? Think of our bodies is filled with energy. We have frequencies, right? It's just kind of like those little atoms that makes who we are. Like under a microscope, you could almost see them. Well, that's just our vessel. And so our soul lifts out of the body, and here it is. It's just energy, but it's still just out of human frequencies. So for a little bit, it just still regains that strength. But the only way it could continue with that is if it was to stay in the body. Now it's no longer is there. It doesn't have a vessel. It doesn't have a car to go on with, right? It's on foot. And so eventually it just gets tired, right? And then those frequencies fade. And then at that moment in time, there's a decision for them to be, okay, well, I can't interact with my loved one anymore. I'm no longer, able to have conversations or do things. I can't touch anything anymore. And do I choose to continue to stay and try to remain here because I'm not ready to go? Or do I get pulled into the other dimension, which is the afterlife? Because this is where I feel like my frequencies, my energy is being drawn to.
And that's a choice.
And at that moment in time, the choice comes from, there's two choices. You can be like, I'm going to follow this because it feels where I can exist there. Here, I no longer belong. But one of the choices that the soul can make too is that if it can realize that the more it interacts and tries to interact with humans' vibrations, the stronger it gets.
Interesting.
Right? So there's a soul that's just wandering around, and it has enough strength to do something just like flicker your lights or move your coffee cup, or it takes a lot of strength, right? You as a human mostly are going to react. You're going to be like, oh, what the fuck, right? I don't know if I can curse on this podcast,
Yeah, you're
but
okay. Listen up.
if you just like, it's going to be like, what happened? And so your emotions have energy, and it's like food for a soul that is just wandering around. And so the more it gets fed, the stronger it gets, and the more it's able to interact with people.
Wild. Okay. It's like a little soul battery.
Exactly. Oh, that's a really good way of putting it. So what happens is like there's a choice for that soul. there's always a choice. Like you can cross or not. And the reason why some people might not, as I said, is because they felt it was too soon. There was unfinished business. Not like, oh, I didn't pay my bills or my mortgage, but more like I had a fight with my partner and I didn't get to tell them how much I love them, right? That type of unfinished business. Fear is a big one too.
It's always fear. It's always fear that we create. So I want to tie that into. Okay, so I'm curious what you think of this. I've had a lot of near-death experience stories on my podcast, and a lot of the
Sure.
a lot of the similarities in regards to the stories is that we have a choice, and some people have the choice to, when they have a near-death experience, to come back, and sometimes it's not a choice.
Sure.
Sometimes you get jolted back or one direct. But how come if someone? It seems like sometimes people come back because there's more work to do. So if that's the case, how come they didn't make that soul doesn't make the decision to just come back? Like why did they die in the first place if that's not part of the whole deal?
Because it's like you need a vessel to exist.
And sometimes there's no decision to even be made there. There's no.
No, because what happened is a near-death experience is a little bit different, right? It's like your body's in shock or something happens and your soul gets to sort of get pulled in. And then at that point, it doesn't get to cross over all the way. It's being sent back, right? There's a lot of people that said, oh, I had hellish near-death experiences, right?
I've heard that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, well, there's hell. They talk about this, but my experience, well, I've never had a near-death experience. So my understanding of it is that you are met where you are at. And so if you have a near-death experience, for example, from you're in a very bad spot and then you overdose, right? You're already in a very hellish spot within your own life. Mm-hmm. So you're going to experience something very similar to your state of mind at the time of that.
So we create it in a sense.
We create it.
Yeah, that's what I've taken from it. And a lot of people believe in hell. And then in that case, it's like kind of correlates, say what you're saying is the case. If you believe in hell, you might see the hell.
When you have a near-death experience, absolutely. You are always met. When you cross over, if you're deeply religious, you are always met with what you believe in. Mm-hmm. So I have talked.
Met. Sorry to cut you off. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no,
so specifically met, and then whatever's after that is more.
It's
like
it's the same for everyone. It's
yes.
completely.
That makes sense.
But you are met with that. I have spoken to so many souls through readings that have come, loved one from my clients, and it's funny. It's like a lot of people that were very deeply religious, right? And then they're just so many times. This is what I get. Wow, it's really not what I thought it would be. It's better.
That's great.
It's insane. It is like, and I'm like, okay, was your grandmother like really deeply religious? And they're like, yeah, very Catholic. And so always they're like, that's better than I thought it would be.
That is a point of when you cross over. It makes sense to me that you will see what you believe because it's like spoon feeding you to have an easier transition. Is how I take it. Like you see what kind of resonates with it on a human form, and kind of guides you into the next life, so maybe it's not as shocking. Is that real?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's just simply, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I do believe it's actually just to acclimate you. Like, well, I don't know if that's the expression, to just make it easier in your transition, right? So there's less of a shock.
That makes sense.
Because if you are very deeply religious, and then you are not met with some of those ideas of what is when you cross over, I think that there's a moment of, likely for your soul, because you're still so attached to human emotions, there's probably still a moment of panic, right? Mm-hmm. But if you are just like so gentle, and then you calm down, and then here we go, because it is the same for everybody.
Yeah, and I don't know why that I guess that would upset people because everyone has their beliefs, and as I said a million times, I think when you start having your beliefs attacked, it becomes personal, and then all of a sudden that's when the emotions come out, and no one's going to have a dialogue anything different than from their beliefs. It's like I would like to just accept that it's going to be the same for everyone, and maybe the transitionary period, the intermission, if you will, is just going to be what you see, which is nice. But then if we're all going to experience the same thing, then we're all going to find out we were all right or wrong at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's cool with me. So in regards to reincarnation and coming back, I guess after we pass, if a soul reincarnates, right, can you still communicate with the person that you knew? Does that make sense? Like my dad died. You can't. So if my dad crossed over, he's reincarnated right now, there's going to be no connection. You just straight up can't.
So, all right. So here's the thing, right? So once you cross over, because there's like steps to the afterlife, right? But let's just say like one of the final steps to it is you get to, before you decide that you want to reincarnate, right? You've been in the afterlife for however long, and the reincarnation takes decades.
Reincarnation takes
Takes
decades?
decades. So
in our time.
In our time. So the odd of your father that died in 9/11 being back, very small, right? Very small. It could be. I mean, I've seen, like recently I had a reading just a few days ago where there was somebody from, where was she from? Like, I mean, that woman was young. She was in her 20s, but there was a life that popped up from her like in the 60s. So it's not an impossibility for it to be like, 50, 60 years.
So it can be within a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I haven't personally seen it, but I haven't like spoken to everybody who's been reincarnated, right? We all come from somewhere. So, but the thing is, once you are in the afterlife, right? So let's say you've done all your stuff and you're in the afterlife, you've been hanging out for a while, you've been doing your thing, and you're just like, your soul is like, okay, I would like more. I need more. I want to grow. I want to go somewhere else, right? Before that happens, before you go and reunite with a little piece of yourself that always stays behind every time you come back on this planet, every time you choose, there's a piece of yourself that's your higher self that stays back with your soul family. And that piece of yourself is the piece that remembers absolutely everything, every single life of yours. It's your intuition. It's the piece that will tell you, hey, maybe don't do this. Hey, this is not the right path, right? It's the piece that works with your spirit guides. All of that. And so before you get to this, there would be a moment where you express this need to go back, to be reunited with this little piece of yourself. And your guides would be like, okay, all right. If that's the case and you want to go and reunite with your higher self, you're going to remember everything, which means that the people that you have loved in this life that you just left, they won't be insignificant to your soul anymore, not the way that you remember them now. So you get, what I have seen is that you get a final moment of memories where you can look at your favorite memories, the things that really warmed you when you were alive, so that you can have that and you can still, because some soul might be like, okay, that feels too much for me to completely detach from that. And others might be like, I'm ready, man. Just let me out, right? So let's say your soul is like, I understand that, I'm fine. You go on, and you go, and you are rejoined with your higher self. At that moment in time, you remember everything. Every life that you've ever had, everything you've ever experienced. But the beauty about it is you are reunited with a piece that's called your soul family. And when you're reunited with your soul family, let's say, and I think we said that in the last podcast, let's say that you and your dad are part of the same soul family. If he chooses this, he is already with the piece of you that's behind. He's already with your higher self. So he will remember every single version of you that he's ever loved.
Throughout all my lives.
Through every life you've ever had.
And then while we're up there, if we're not reincarnated, what are we doing?
So once you get there to this final piece, right, this is the moment where you start thinking of coming back. And you start thinking, okay, what else would I like to experience in this life? Who else would I like to go with, right? And so let's say that this person is like, okay, I want to experience living on another planet or wherever that is, right? Then at that moment in time, it's almost like you go through some sort of like soul school, right?
Soul school.
Like it's like a school. You'll be shown like his different options, his different experiences that you can have. You get to like look at all the different aspects of the life that you could pick, the people that you could be with. You can go with your soul family and decide, okay, do you want to come back on this adventure with me? Do I go by myself? Like, who wants to be along?
So
like, who is not? You collude.
Hell yeah.
And sometimes you have like neighboring soul family too, right? It almost feels like imagine a townhouse and then there's just a thin wall and you have like friends next door. And you're like, hey, you want to go on an adventure? And maybe they'll be like, yeah, well, what the no, just go by yourself. Yeah. I'm simplifying things.
Of course, I like that.
Just as a fun thing to visual. I like to visualize things is very good. So it's just visualize that, and then eventually you go, okay, well, now I'm good. I'm gonna come back, right? So you detach again from this piece that is your higher self, and so when you come back in this brand new life of yours. That little piece that is a higher self, that is part of your intuition, that is there to guide you, it's only going to be inclined to guide the new you, the one that is currently living a life.
How do you tell between intuition and, human thoughts?
Yeah, that's a very good point. But does that make sense, what I was trying to say?
No, it makes sense.
It makes sense?
It makes sense. I mean, it's a little... just to kind of revert back into my initial question, which was, if the soul is reincarnated, can you communicate with them? So if that, just to make sure I do understand it, if a little
Sure.
part of us is still up there, but you're saying we still can't communicate.
No, because it's not that you can't. It's that there's no need. Like that little piece that is there. It's now its main focus. It's your soul that's back in a new body. So
Got
it's
it.
going to be focused on that. And so it's not going to be interested in coming and communicating with what people that had left behind, because it's no longer its focus. Its focus is the new life that person is in.
Okay, so maybe this, I don't know if this is really a
tell
smooth
me.
transition, but in regards to the experience of some people having, these ethereal experiences with someone that may have died later in life. Have you ever heard anything like that in regards to someone
What do you
having
mean?
so maybe signs or having a communication with the loved one many, many years
Yeah,
later?
it's possible.
Is there a reason for that? Like why it would come
Yeah,
later?
absolutely. Because it's like, I mean, not every sign you see, not every feather you see, or every bird that flies by is your dead uncle from like 40 years ago, right? Or like it's not. It's
Right.
the truth. Like we create things in our mind, but the truth is like what I'm going to tell people is this: it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if what you are seeing is real or not. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because what matters is how it makes you feel.
Amen.
Because if it feels good and it reminds you of somebody that you loved and it fills you with joy and happiness and warms your heart, then it does not matter if it's real or not.
That, but at the same time, that is real. You know, I mean, like, even if
Exactly.
yeah, like the real connecting
Exactly.
into the after, it's like if it is real. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's why I always answer people. They're like, oh, I saw this and this and this. I was just like, was it my dad? I'm like, I don't know. First of all, I don't know because I'm not reading you right now. But also, it doesn't matter. How did you feel? Did it make you feel happy? Did you remember a happy memory of your dad at that moment in time? And if the answer to that is yes, and then wonderful.
Yeah,
Well, that makes sense.
that makes perfect sense. I couldn't agree even without these abilities. I couldn't agree more. Like I resonate with that and just the way I live my life, and just okay, does it feel good?
Yeah,
As long as you're not screwing anyone else up. If it feels good,
exactly.
and it's like then let that person live.
And and the truth is this: it's like, can a soul that has passed 40, 50 years ago come through? Yes, I've seen it. I have spoken to many, right? I have seen it and I've spoken to many. And they can. And that means they are not back.
They're
If
okay.
they are coming through, at least during a reading, they're not back.
And would they be coming through later, not from their soul needs, because they might believe that that person that's still living just kind of needs it at this time?
Yeah, I mean, it's like more years or decades have passed, the less likely it is, because like this connection has happened. But also, like time really, time on earth that we experience it's like a blink of a second for them often, right? So what we think is like it's been so long, they'll just be like, well, I just got here.
Yeah, the soul thinks they're on time, and you're 40
Like
years
you're
late.
just like it's 40 years later. You're like, it's been 40 years. Where was my sign?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
just
no.
like So also, it's like the afterlife. And everybody is always like, well, what are they doing? What do they do? Like, do they smell things? I'm like, it's not human. We're not in a human body
We're thinking from our
anymore.
five senses,
You're thinking from your five senses. Think bigger than that.
which is hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah, I think it's fun. Hard isn't the word for me, but it's fun.
Yeah. Well, it's like the same thing like when I do readings with people and souls come all the time, right? And it's like you'll be somebody like that comes through and it's your grandmother and she died when she was 90, but she's showing herself and she's 30 and she's vibrant and she's happy. And people have trouble wrapping their mind around the fact like, well, why would she show herself this way? I didn't know her this way. I'm like, okay, but don't you want that soul to be experiencing what they want to experience?
Yeah, it always comes back to our a little bit more selfish thoughts.
We are.
Which
We're
is fun,
such inherently, but it's human nature, right? It's part of who it is.
That's the thing right there, human nature. We only know things as human nature until we try to take a peek at just ideating about the idea that maybe there's just more we can, but just don't understand right now. And it's like that's how I think about it. It's
Yeah.
like I just think there's so much more that just doesn't make sense in this meat sack to a lot of us. But that's that. Like we just don't understand it as a human. It's that we're all thinking with our five senses, and there's just a whole nother level to this shit that is so much deeper. That is just fascinating.
But there's also the thing that it's like I always try to be very gentle with people because, especially like on my, with all my followers and the whole thing, is that a lot of people are grieving and in a lot of pain, right? And so even if I said to them, hey, it's very likely like you want your loved ones to move on, you want them to grow. There's also compassion and the fact that some people have lost children and they have lost, and of course they want to think of them the exact same way. Or they want to think of the child that they have lost being with their grandmother, right? Because ultimately you need to think that to move on, and not move on, but to be able to even function in your own life. And so there's also grief is really heavy, right? And so I think grief also at times keeps us within the five senses because we are in so much pain, and it takes time, and it has to be respected as well.
It does have to be respected, and I think again it goes back to that idea of if you believe there's more, then it concurrently, simultaneously comes with the idea that even, okay, if there's more, that soul, that past still has growing to do, like you said, still has more to do. So that's part of, I guess, kind of letting them go. Not letting them go on a human form, but they have to do their thing too.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, because grief is the most. It's like grief is everything. Grief is one. I mean,
really
we all know grief in some capacity, all in our own way. But it's like grief is, it's one word. But I think grief is jumbling every emotion into one word, and you might feel certain emotions more, you might feel emotions different, but like grief is just the jambalaya of emotions.
Yeah,
it's like you can feel anything at any moment. It could be anger, it could be sadness, it could be joy, whatever it is. Like grief is just a clusterfuck of feeling, and it's like it's hard. You have to like put the pieces together,
and also it knows no time.
Yeah,
Grief is like is powerful in the sense that it has to be felt. And if it's not felt, it will wait. It will wait until there's time for it, and it will come right back.
That's the thing. It's patient.
So it will be patient. It's like you'll be like, you did not feel me. Here I am.
And that goes back to my biggest lesson is allowing yourself to feel. Allowing yourself to feel is my biggest lesson. Sounds very simple, and I think it is by theory harder to do, but it's allowing yourself to feel, kind of like releases the air from the filled up balloon, and I think that's part of it. And if you don't release that air, you don't feel, like you just said, that balloon's gonna go all over. It's gonna spurt throughout the room that you're in.
That is true. You know, there is a little while ago, a few months ago, I did something on my Instagram where I asked questions to people. I was just like, if you are grieving, if you've lost somebody, what are the things that you would have liked to hear from others? And what are the things that just really you were like, please just shut up? And it was incredible, like the answers that I got. And one of the main things that people said was, don't give me platitudes such as they're in a better place because I just want to punch you in the face. Don't be like, oh, it will get better. Or, oh, you're going to find somebody else. Oh, you still have your children. Like, enough. Like, just sit with me and just shut up. And then the other thing that people said, which was quite impressive, not impressive, but it was surprising to me, and at the same time not, which was people grieving were like, they wish that people understood that it's not just the 2 weeks that they're taking off after the death of a loved one, that people should still be checking on them a year after, saying, how are you feeling?
Yes.
Because grief does not end when your leaves are ending and then you have to go back to work.
Just continues to evolve.
It continues to evolve. It's still there, completely and fully. And I remember I had a friend of mine and who lost her son when he was 10. And that was, I mean, that's like 15 years ago. It's a while back. And one of the things, and I saw her about after the death of this little boy, we kept in touch, but I ran into her maybe like a year and a half after, and she had gone back to work. And then she stood there with me in my office at the moment, crying, because she was like, the hardest thing is people don't understand that why I still break down. I'm at work, and they're like, well, it's been a year and a half, you should be over it.
Oh, that's not a good thing to say.
No, absolutely. But that's the people don't want to deal with what they're not comfortable with. And so your emotions are uncomfortable to them. It reminds them of their own shit, and they don't want to deal with it. And so they're like, hey, stop being sad around me, right?
That word should. Word should is in many different capacities is a very interesting word.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you want me to answer that question about intuition?
Oh yeah.
Because I remember that, and I was skipped right over it.
No, because we were clarifying the prior question, but yeah, I'm interested in hearing that, really knowing the difference between. I think we know it intuitively, ironically, but it's like is that it? It's like, is it just knowing intuition intuitively? It's like, how do you decipher intuition and just these
in your brain,
word
right?
salad?
your monkey brain. This is how I personally always tell people. I'm like, intuition is this inner knowing that it's just almost like this gut feeling, right? It's like for a reason because, so technically, I'm also a yogi, right? So it's like I always think of this way. It's like there's this understanding that the seat of your soul is within your solar plexus. So let's say like this premise is that this is true, right? This gut feeling is your soul kicking, being like, hey, pay attention, right? And so if your intuition is part of you listening to your higher self, not your spirit guide, it's a completely different thing, like to your higher self, then you're going to feel it within like deep down into your body. There's this knowing feeling. Your brain will bring up all the shit that makes you scared. And so your first thought is usually the right one. The first one that you get out of nowhere when you're asking yourself a question, should I do this? The first thing, it's always usually the right one. But then after that, like your brain goes on, oh, what if that happened? And what if that happened? And what if that happened?
Like,
and then you don't know.
Like, go talk to that girl. Oh, I have a pimple on my face. Like, no, not the pimple. It's not the pimple.
Exactly. And so then after that, you don't understand and you don't know. And you're like, shit, I don't understand. Like, I don't know which one is right. But go back to the first answer you had, because that was the unfiltered one.
Mm-hmm. That's it. It's the unfiltered one.
Right?
It's like I just said the last episode I have is like kind of going. It's like those child thoughts. The child doesn't have a filter. It just has no biases. When they say something, my niece tells me I look ugly in glasses. Like it's just the first thought. It's like that was her intuition. Maybe I should have listened to her intuition and take my glasses off. So thank you again, Isabel. It's 2 episodes in a row. I'm bringing up my beautiful, adorable, amazing niece. Another thing I do want to just that triggered in my head in regards to this all ties together. We're talking about death. Do you feel like you understand and know the actual dying process? Like I know we discussed the transitionary phase, this or that, but like, is there any logistics of death in regards to that first step of when we die in this body, like what that dying process looks like or feels like?
Absolutely.
Like, what is it? What's going on?
Like let's say when your body just expires, it's like lights out. I mean, it's pretty simple. Like it's what actually we kind of discussed it a little bit. It's like your soul steps outside of the body. Mm-hmm. And actually often it is outside of the body before the body dies. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm tying into another question within a question before I lose my thought there. This is the ADD catching up.
I mean, that thing. Yes, I hear you.
I've jokingly self-diagnosed. Everyone's diagnosed like it's their Mr. WebMD, but is that part of, like I'm jumping around. We'll get back to the question. Is that like the decision to not?
Guys.
Yeah, is that
me
like
too. Me too. So bad. By the way.
Is that the ejection to like not feel the body's pain when it's suffering?
Yeah. So, I have seen. Basically, all right. So let me get back to this for a second before I answer your question. Is actually let's go back to the reincarnation piece.
Okay.
Because that's important. It links straight into this. When you come back and then you make the decision, this is the life that is sort of where I want to be. There's a lot of free will parts. So they can't show you every single aspect or steps because you have free will. So if I tell you something right now, but you go outside the door and you do something completely different than you and I have discussed, then it's a different ballgame, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you are getting ready to come back, one of the things that you are shown is the different exit points that you may have.
Different exit points.
Exit point of your life. Okay. The different moments where you lights out.
Right. Okay. That exit. The big exit.
That big exit. So here's the thing. It's like you might not, you as a human do not remember. You don't know. But you could be leaving your house tomorrow. And then you decide, oh shit, I forgot, oh, man, I forgot my keys or my phone. You go back up. Had you not forgotten your phone, you would have crossed the street, the truck would have come, and you were gone.
I think about that all the time.
Right, correct, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
Right, but you were like, oh no, I forgot my phone. I went back upstairs. The truck went by, and you didn't die. Now suddenly, you are on the path where you are going to live until you're 95. Versus that it could have ended you with however old you are, like within a minute.
And that's what I'm saying. When you're all in traffic and you didn't hit that green light, you get frustrated because you missed the light.
Listen to this. Yes,
you
absolutely.
might have just survived because of that. So get excited about not hitting those lights, baby, or hitting the lights, whatever one.
But you never know. So, right? But the soul knows.
Wild.
And so one of the things that happens is, let's say you are going to die in a car crash, right? And right prior to the hit, your soul is like, oh, shit. That is there's a moment of like, oh, I know that. And so it will step out.
That is literally, so I spoke to, at a near-death experience episode, and she said exactly that. She got in a car wreck and explained that. She's like, oh, everything was in slow motion. And she's like, oh, I've recognized this. and she had a choice like, oh, I can experience this. I was like, I don't need to experience this. Why would I have to feel getting ripped by this car?
Yes.
And she's like, so I was like, I'm gonna get out of my body. So literally exactly what you just said. That was her story.
Exactly.
Wild.
That's funny, and I don't know who that is. I haven't heard her story.
No, but
it's
that
what
makes
I've been
sense.
shown.
Yeah. And that adds up.
And you guys, this is why I know what I know.
Hey,
But
back
no,
to the
get
end.
back to that. This is true,
yeah.
right?
No,
Because it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
I haven't talked to her. I haven't talked to anybody really that has had an NDE. Sorry.
Yeah, you haven't
Like-
even shared those either. Yeah, no.
No, it's just that I literally, like, I've been told that. And so you step out of your body, right? And so that is the death process. So if you are dying and it's like this longer process because you're sick or you're old and then you are in and out. And this is why a lot of people have the time when they're laying in a hospital room, you know, they would just say, oh, I just saw my mom. They are just kind of like their soul steps out and they're having a whole conversation with their loved one. They're hanging out, they're waiting, and then there's no fear in that moment in time.
So when we do officially die, is it's an automatic ejection, or is the soul sometimes like, I'm just like sit in this dead body for a second?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think it's an automatic ejection.
like
It's an
boom.
automatic, like, you're out.
And then
But
that's
so here's what they do. We have a cord. There's a cord. Like
what is
the
that? What do they call that cord again?
energy cord. I'd call it an energy cord. I don't know what people call it, but
there's another one, but it's, yeah, okay. the
I
energy
mean, I
cord.
don't know. I call it the cord that when a soul decides to come into a body, it'll just drop a cord into the womb and be like, this is mine.
Right.
That's it, right? And then in and out. And so it's like, it's interesting too because the body has an umbilical cord to the mother and the soul has a kind of like an umbilical energy cord to its body.
Mm-hmm.
And so it might, when, let's say the body is kind of like just taking its last breath and it just took its last breath, it might take like a few seconds for that cord to detach. It's possible. Like, I don't know. But either way, it just eventually just cuts off.
And so step one of the dying process is that ejection from the soul, and then at that point there is like a quick waiting period of observing the scene.
Yeah.
Is that always the case? You're always like, okay,
Most
you're like
of the
adjusting,
time.
and then from there, that's the transition part where we may see what we might.
So there is a like there's a light apparently that shows. I don't personally see it, but there's a. I've been told many times by souls that there's a light that appears, right? It's got, but the way, if you think of it, the more on a scientific level, right? It's that there are other dimensions that do exist. That is more simply just like a portal to another dimension. That's what the afterlife is. It's just another dimension that we step into to exist because we can no longer exist on this planet. That's it.
Is there?
Right.
Is there? Do you think there's a portal to that? Do you think there's any more portals to something beyond that you haven't been shown?
What do you mean?
Like, is there anything else that maybe, like, from what you know now, like, is there still stuff that you feel hasn't been revealed to you?
Oh, it's possible. I learn new shit all the time.
Yeah, so like, it's like this the afterlife as we're discussing it, but maybe there's something even beyond that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's all possible. Like I have seen new things from experiences with by talking to souls constantly.
what's the
when I
newest
do
thing you've
readings.
learned?
This one piece that I talk about, well, there's a couple of things that I have personally seen, and then I have that have been told by souls. The one stop before you go and rejoin with your higher self, where you get, hey, here are all your favorite memories. Like, are you sure that this one? Like, are you sure? Because once you step into the next dimension, like, there's really no, you can't. Like, you lose this piece. Like, this is not
So
coming
that's
back
when
into this
reincarnation
dimension.
stops.
No. It's like when, like, the piece where, let me back up for a second. You die, you decide, I'm crossing over. Go into the first dimension, there's a bunch of steps, right? It's like you go into the first place that's called, like, I like to call it like the Hall of Souls, which is all the souls arrive. It's kind of like Central Station in New York, right?
It's like the cocktail hour before the
It
wedding party.
literally, it's like everybody's fucking here. And there's souls everywhere, and then you directed into towards places. Your spirit guides come, they take you, you get a life review, you get a healing, and I'm simplifying all of this. Then you are dumped into your afterlife. And then at the beginning of your afterlife, you are like more inclined to just look down, to just send your loved one signs. You know, there's a bunch of different ways that you can do this. And then eventually your soul like starts moving on. It starts, you know, it can help others. There's jobs that it can take. But at one point it gets to a moment where it goes, okay, I've done that for so long. Like I'm good. Like I would like to just grow from here. Mm-hmm. And then what you do is before you do that, your guides will show up and they'll be like, okay, dude, are you sure? Like, because everything, like all the time that you could reach out to your loved ones, all the time that you could do all those things, that once you cross this threshold, once you go to the next step, there's no more of that.
So if there's an "Are you sure?" question, does doubt exist on the other side?
I mean, it's my human brain translating it this way.
Right.
I don't know if it's really or are you sure? It's more like the way I'm understanding it. It's probably all very energetic,
Right.
right?
I feel like doubt can't exist. At that point, you probably.
It's possible. It's like people always ask me, like, is there music? Do I smell things? Do people hug? I was just like, it's all energetic. So as much as energy can do, yes, probably.
I don't know what energy can't do, to be honest.
Right.
I did want to bring up this popular line that I constantly hear all the time is,
Oh, please tell me about.
yeah, the dead cannot speak, but she is communicating with demons.
Oh, of course.
You know that one.
Oh, I love demons talk. But it's true, you guys, because it's fear, right? It's people get scared of what they don't understand. I mean, I get that. I totally get that. I have compassion for it, but also it's like not in my comments, but please. But okay, so here's the thing about demons, angels, heaven and hell. And I don't want to alienate your listeners, but all of those things were invented by human beings to scare people. Like religion, heaven and hell, like was invented and used at a time where maybe it was necessary because we were a little lawless. We were a little walking around and killing people left and right with no repercussions. So you have to have the do not kill thing. You have to have this punishment after your life, you know.
Get in line.
Get in line, right? Okay, fine. It was necessary for a little while, but it was taken and weaponized so much, right, to keep you in line, basically. Mm-hmm. So demons, I'm not talking to demons. Like it's just people have this idea about demons, like, you know, like those red faces with those horns and the whole thing or whatever. It just cracks me up so much because demons and even angels don't really exist in the sense of the biblical sense.
Unless, okay, so when we went back to that transitionary point, say we cross over and the hell is a choice. So if you believe in demons, maybe you might see that and then you'll come back thinking it's real.
Well, for the NDA, and I can never say that, near-death experiences, yeah. Yes. Like
in that specific case.
But in real life, in real death, no. It's just because that would be eventually kind of like it would just be shown that none of this is real.
Yeah, there's always some, in regards to like the biblical sense and the religious aspect, I always brought up like, please correct me in the comments. I'm not the most rehearsed when it comes to the Bible, so take it with a grain of salt. But from my understanding, I think it was John that was the one that was receiving messages and visions that were then were there with the purpose to share those visions and share those dreams that he's had to the people. So I'm like, when people we bring up negative connotations about clairvoyancy and mediums and this and that, it's like, and they are usually referencing, not always, sometimes referencing the Bible. It's like, well, John was receiving, maybe it wasn't a medium, but he was receiving visions and messages from God or some other whatever you want to call it. So like, what are we talking here? Like it's not that far off, people. It's like, it's kind of like the same thing. So I'm like, but we believe that, but then that's good. That's good because we know it's from God. But this, I'm not saying like what you're saying is from God or whatever, but it's like, what are we talking here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And if you,
I could be wrong. I don't know.
No. But here's what it is. It's like people are gonna come in the comments and gonna be like, "Well, I have seen demons and I have all of this, right?" So here's my understanding of if you want to call it demons and if you want to call it angels, this is what I have been shown what those are. If it's the semantics you want to use, the words you want to use, and we go back to what happened to a soul after the soul passes, right? After the body dies, the soul lifts out, right? And again, you get a choice. You may cross over into the next dimension. Great. See you later. You go through your afterlife, right? Or souls could be scared. They decide not to cross. They stay here. Now, there's a thing that happens. If your soul stays here, and then your possibility of crossing into the other dimension fades. Right? Because eventually, like that pool is going to be gone. Mm-hmm. Because what happened is, if you stay on Earth and then you do nothing about, your energy will fade. And this is why, like, people are like, well, I've seen like like what are all those black shadow I see? There's literally like souls that are just kind of like faded to the point that they cannot even be seen anymore. They just become shadow, which is very sad, right? Because you kind of like
shadows aren't always bad. Like
No, but
yeah.
you just fade, right? And then you're just wandering around. It's just like it's not a good thing. But here's what people are talking about demons. So let's say your soul, you go, yeah, I'm gonna stay here. I'm not going. I'm not going to decide. Forget about it, right? And then you understand that, oh my God, if I piss this person off, or if this person is sad, or if I go to a place that's really crowded, there's so much energy and emotion, like I feel stronger. Like suddenly I can move this can. I'm good, right? And so you realize you do that and you're having a good time.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like fun for a second, but then years go on, your loved ones pass, people that you've loved are no longer here, you're still stuck here. Your character traits of who you were deeply as a human being, your flaws or your goodness, it amplifies. And so if you were and can I curse in this podcast?
Yeah, let it loose.
If you were an asshole or super unkind or a narcissist, all those things, that darkness that was just maybe very little grows, right? And so what happens is your soul goes more towards that. It takes over who you were, right? And so at that moment in time, people are like, oh, I've seen deformed. Like, yeah, you're right, because you just start shaping your body into what that's coming out. Right? This is why demons look like demons, but they're not coming from the pit of hell. The same goes with goodness.
Yeah.
People that have stayed here that were like really, truly kind and loving and caring, and they decided not to cross, that also, they would shift into something that feels almost angelic. That said, they are more rare because people like that have a little less fear of crossing over.
So in regards to maybe those souls that are having fun, dabbling in our world and showing signs and whatever that means, what are some common signs that you think we may overlook? Like maybe some people just aren't as open-minded and this, that, the other. Are there any common signs that we may get? Is all maybe it's just cliche, but like what?
No, not at all. Like when a soul first lifts out of the body right after death, right? One of the things it's very capable of doing is coming into your dreams.
Okay.
Like almost immediately, like really powerful dreams, actually. Usually saying goodbyes or anything like that. If your grief is not too heavy, because sometimes it cloaks you in this heaviness that they can't penetrate, right? So that would be a big thing. Within the first week or so, they're strong. They could like mess with your electronics, right? Your lights will flicker. Some of them can, like suddenly your door slams. That fades away eventually. And then after that, it's like when a soul still hasn't crossed over, they can energetically move. People are like, oh, I just saw like birds, a red bird, right? Well, that red bird is not your grandpa, but it could be if your grandpa hasn't crossed over. Like animals are very sensitive to energy, right? It could be your grandpa in front of that bird, it could be like, boo, and then the bird flies.
Can that sometimes tie back into the intuition thing? Like, obviously, we could be looking for signs, then we get mental and start defining it when maybe it's not. But maybe that first thought, that jolt of intuition out of nowhere tells you it is. Is that sometimes something you should listen to?
For intuition?
Yeah, I would say in relation to seeing a sign or
yeah,
whatever,
absolutely.
like
because the truth is, like, if something comes in and you see a sign, or like you're driving, right, and then in front of you there's a license plate, and the license plate has the nickname of your dad.
Yes,
it's likely not a just a fluke.
Yeah,
right?
those
It's
are very
exactly what
black.
it
Those
is.
are a little more black and white.
This is a little more black and white. And those things do happen. They're rare because it takes a lot of strength. And they're not going to happen from souls that haven't crossed over. Souls that haven't crossed over, they're almost like one trick. You know?
You just made me think. So I was texting with someone and we were kind of having some banter back and forth, and I made a comment about saying everything, like let it out, and then I was like, and I said something. No, I'm not saying everything, or whatever it was, something along the lines of. And she was like, no, say everything. And then I thought about it because I wanted to say something, but I was like, maybe it's not the time to say something. Say whatever it was. And I was then driving shortly after, and I was still thinking about it. I look up and I see a billboard that literally says, "Say nothing." Which I thought
that's quite perfect.
It was just hilarious. So I was like, it's a movie that's out. I think it was "Say Nothing." Literally, I was like, I'm looking at a billboard. Then eventually I texted her. I was like, I said to the phone, like, I'm saying nothing.
Oh, that is so funny. So that would be your spirit guides almost being like, hey, dude, listen a little bit. Like, the first thing you got, we told you no. Like, maybe you should listen to that. That is very funny. That's very funny. But, to go back to this, what you were talking about, like, the souls that haven't crossed over versus the one out in the afterlife that are giving you sign. Once a soul has crossed, the signs that you might receive are much more gentle. They won't be slamming doors. It won't be that. It would be more like suddenly out of the blue, you feel, oh my God, I swear to God, my grandma, like I felt like my grandma was hugging me, right? It's energetic. Or you might be, I smelled my dad's aftershave and I don't know where this is coming from.
That resonates. I think I've shared it on the podcast again, but I don't think I told you.
Yeah,
After my mom went into cardiac arrest, she, fast forwarding a little bit, she mentioned she was looking for my grandmother, on my dad's side, so her mother-in-law. And she felt like even when she was on wherever she was in that space, when she was out of it, when her heart stopped, she's like, I was looking for Nanny. Like I couldn't find. I thought she was there. Then afterwards, my mom, when she got out of the hospital, was saying something along the lines like she still felt she was there. And I remember being in the hospital and I smelt my grandmother. I smelt her. And I was like,
right.
She had a very distinct smell, like not in a bad way or a good way. It's just like that smell.
Yeah, you smell it.
A recognizable smell. And I thought about it at the time. I think this is when I stayed overnight with my mom in the hospital. I slept there, and I think at the same time she was talking about, I smelt her. And then when my mom got out of the hospital, we were on the balcony just kind of, soaking in the experience we just went through. She just got out of the hospital, healing up. And she brought up my grandmother again. Remember, I opened the door to go back into my mom's apartment. And as soon as I opened it, I had the same smell again.
Yeah.
And I was like, that smell isn't just in my mom's apartment. It was a very distinct smell. I stopped. I don't even know if I said anything to my mom at the time. But I remember just thinking, I was like, I might have just smelt my grandmother for that. Again, it was the second time. And it was a very distinct smell. I'm like, it felt like something, and I've never had an experience like that was specific to scent in regards to that correspondence, It was
That's
something.
a really, really big way for them to communicate on that.
And she's been gone for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. That's crossed over connection, for sure.
I know I asked you earlier about, and we went on a rampage about souls not wanting to exist after this, and that was just a human thought. But you also mentioned in the last podcast about how some souls at some point later on could get ripped apart. So is that
that's a little deeper than that. Yeah, two things. So two parts of your questions, like, can a soul choose not to exist? The answer to that is no.
Okay.
Right? You can't be like, I don't want to exist anymore.
As a soul saying that,
you can't. That's not going to happen. And because you're thinking of it as right now, and you are in a really hard spot, or your life has been really hard, which some people's life has been terribly hard, in the world in general, and they're like, I just don't want to come back and do this shit again, right? And I totally 100% get it. The decision you make to come back are not made from this place.
Right.
They're just made from a way higher place than that.
But say you are a soul, you're not here anymore. Can that soul end? You get an eternity. So what did you mean by ripped apart?
So that is a bit different.
Okay.
That's not happen because you're choosing it to it. That would be that we come into the idea that the question that I get all the time, which is good and evil, right? And people are like, oh yeah, what about bad people? Don't they go to hell and they're punished? And I totally get that. I get it. If you've been hurt so deeply, you want the person to hurt as well. 100% get it. I wish it was that simple. I wish it was that simple to be like, you did bad, then go for it. So the ripped apart piece is that when you cross over and you get to the other side, your soul goes and decides to come over, right? Your guides will take you. You have a life review. And then you get to see what you have done in life. Not as bad, but you get to experience it from all sides. So if you've hurt somebody deeply, you're going to feel it. You're going to connect to what that person felt, right? After that, they will they look at this, and then you go into what is called the healing space. And the healing space is about healing your soul, removing all the junk that you carried with you from Earth. Some souls can't do that. Some souls have done such horrible things in this life. And the thing is, the body is not the soul. The brain is not the soul. And so the only way your soul will be punished, quote unquote, for it, which means pulled apart, is if your soul partook into your actions on this earth. If your soul was part of all the shit that you've done. It was game for it. It came here and it was like, I'm gonna do, like, yes, let's
Why would
do
that
this.
exist? Why would some souls do that?
Because it's easier not to fight it. It's easier to go along with it. They're not strong enough. Like, there's many different ways, right? And so at that moment in time, if a soul cannot be redeemed, which means that they cannot remove all the junk and all the darkness that has come back with it, there's no other choice.
So there's flaws in the soul system,
Right.
the
And
solar
so,
system.
they literally, so they will be pulled apart. But here's the thing, the trick about it. If a soul is pulled apart, energy cannot die, right? And so what do you do with all the particles of energy that are just like pulled apart?
What do you do?
It is fed back into the whole.
So it's recycled?
No, I mean, kind of. It's pulled. We all carry some of that inside of us. It's pulled. Is everybody gets, like, it's just put into everything. It just loses its essence.
It's
Not
diversified.
Correct.
Okay.
So the soul loses its essence. It no longer is. It would not remember its past life. It's no longer who it was. All of that existence of that soul is gone.
And what's making that decision to rip a soul apart? Which sounds so violent, but it doesn't sound as bad as it sounds.
It sounds. This is why I say, like, pulled apart, but ripped apart is probably.
Sorry, I made that more graphic than I had to.
No. It's totally fine. I mean, it's the truth. I believe the spirit guides do that because they're the one that is kind of like, so, like, a life review is really not about judgment. But if a soul can't heal past, like, it keeps rejecting this healing energy, this beautiful energy that's being tried to realign it, if it keeps, like, just fighting it, eventually something has to be done with it.
And that is, and you're saying it does come from a decision from something else. It's not the soul making that decision.
It's not the soul making a decision.
So there's a hierarchy, and is there a hierarchy of
I mean, I guess so. Like, it's not like hierarchy the way we understand it.
Okay, maybe not hierarchy, might be the wrong word, just like a chain of command.
Yeah, but it's more about elevation, right? Like, the souls that guide us, our spirit guides, are like, they are really evolved souls. And
okay, so like a spirit guide is more okay. There maybe just be a little further up in the game.
correct.
Okay, so if energy cannot be created nor destroyed and energy to exist, like, what's the deal with new souls? This is a question I thought of. Like, what? I figured out a friend asked me, it's like, oh, it's a really good question, and now I'm trying to put it together live
I
while you're
understand
listening.
that. Like, where are souls coming from?
Yeah, like, what is a
where,
new soul? Like, do all souls happen at the same time, or is a new soul a real thing?
Yeah, totally. Not on here, not on this earth. I've been told very clearly by my own guides, there are no one new on this planet. This is why when people are like, oh, that person is an old soul. Like, I'm such an old soul.
Well, you can say it. Is it? But other? Okay, so let's say from 0 to 100. Let's just, even though it's not really, it's like a soul. If you can start, there are different starting points, correct? In general. So can you be a newer soul as opposed to a new soul? Like, when I say so it's like when someone says they're a young soul as opposed to new. Like, maybe this, like, someone's been around for, again, on a 0 to 100 scale. Like, they're like maybe like a 10-year-old soul, and then someone might be a 90-year-old soul.
Right.
That's real.
Yeah, it's totally real. It's just about how many lives you've had.
Right, which dictates the
It
old new
dictates
soul.
what you are old or not. I guess so.
So what's the deal with the new soul then? Like,
It's just like there's no, so again, no baby new souls here. Like,
Right.
no one. It would be like sending a kindergarten to college and be like, please succeed. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not gonna happen.
Right.
Right. So they'll go to more gentle planets, like where maybe lifespan is not, 100 years like here. Maybe it's very fast.
So what's generating new souls? What's the why?
Source.
Is that ever source is just like, oh, we need some more. We need more.
Not really. It's just that there are more bodies everywhere.
It's like soul inflation. Like, they're printing too much money. They're printing too many souls.
Hey, you're right. You're right. No, but it's kind of like we keep, like, just think of this Earth, like the planet and the human on this planet, like more and more humans, right? So it's like, yeah, why there's not brand new souls? But imagine if this planet is getting more populated. How do you think others are?
Yeah, well, they need more planets.
Right. So it's like there's more and more bodies to fill, or like sentience being to have souls into. So it's just kind of like my understanding of it, and I always try to sort of like, I mean, I'm not a scientist by any means, and I'm sure you've had what's his name, Neil Diamond? No, not
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, I love him, but it's like I'm sure he would laugh at everything I'm saying right now.
Yeah, he's
Just
very science fiction.
very
He needs the
I
evidence.
love him. I think like he's amazing. But the truth is like just a little scientific, like, source is an energy, an ever expanding energy. It's like, to me, it's the energy of the Big Bang, right? And then the energy of the Big Bang is ever expanding. It always expands. Well, those expansion to me are just like filament. They're souls. that are just being created at all
To
times.
fill up the space.
Yeah.
That's never going to end then. Jeez. I forgot if I asked you last time.
No, I don't think it will.
Do you have an understanding of, say, with the Big Bang Theory, and everyone says, where did it start? Where did it end? Like, is it?
No,
how does? Yeah. What the hell? What do you? How would you theorize that? Even if you don't know, like, just have fun with
No,
that.
I don't try. Because
Fair.
no, because
I
it's
know, my
like
brain hurts already.
so it's yeah. I mean that energy. Where did it come from? Was it another energy before? Like I don't even think like scientists really know. So
No.
psychic and medium even less. Like I don't even want to try to dabble into that.
That's
Just-
a wild thought, right? Thinking
It's a
like
really wild
before
thought.
everything, there had to be. You think there's a start to everything, but maybe there was never like that. Yes, let's stop talking about that. I'm
Your
cross-eyed right
brain
now.
is gonna explode. You can't. There's things that you can have understanding of, and then things that you can't.
Yeah, I know. We just have this. I don't. I like having fun with it. So like,
Totally.
You know what I mean? But it's like we have to. We always have this feeling of knowing, and then without not knowing creates fear, and fear we're just creating it. And it's.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Is there anything else we didn't cover?
My God, that was a lot.
Yeah, if you guys are still
That's a
with
lot.
us, I was trying to keep it concise, but I think it was all over the place, but also not.
I mean,
It's all the same shit.
It's all linked, right?
Yeah,
it's
that's the whole
just
point.
that I have. Was there any other questions on your thing?
I think I went through. I was a lot of those questions weren't even written down. We kind of just wung it, but it was like guidelines of where we wanted to go. So I think we kind of went through. I'm gonna take a quick peek. Why not?
Yeah, take a peek. You never know.
Let's see what else I put down there. Yeah, no, I think I tackled all these, and a lot of these happened accidentally. I wasn't even.
Yeah, they just kind of like came up without.
This is what happens to the souls of those who end their lives, truly believing the other side will be less horrible.
That's actually a very good question. You want me to answer that?
Hell yeah.
Okay. So that's a question I get very often because if people who have had loved ones that took their own lives, they're often confronted with religious people coming at them and telling them your person is in hell. Which how fucking insensitive is that? First of all, that pisses me off.
Some things you don't have to say. Even if
No, it's
the
just
line of
like
your
you like
beliefs.
even if it's what you believe,
Yeah,
please just
don't say that.
be kind, right? Kindness to others is a very, very good skill to have. That said, nothing happens. Not any different than anyone else. Right? So it's the same process. The soul leaves the body and then you get a decision you want to cross or you not want to cross. Right? And then they'll just go and they do the exact same thing. They'll go through the same life review anyone else. They're just shown what could have been.
You know, it's interesting. A theorized thought playing off what you just said. It's like, I obviously from this human aspect, I've had a recent conversation that I think is going to be live before this episode that was just talking about suicide, and of course we want to look after each other and don't want that to happen. So it's like if someone's in a bad situation where they feel that's the only option. With tying it into what you just said, oh, well, if you're cutting it short, maybe you're not going to get the lessons you were supposed to get because you cut it short and you have to do things all over again, like you said. So the thought is like, stick around, stay with us for the people that want you here. And so you don't have to do it again. So it's like, it's an interesting thought of having to do this again and might have to go through that again theoretically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's also like simplifying the whole, like, I do not judge. And again, I'm not advocating for anybody to do that. Like, please seek help if it's something that you are considering. Like, there's tons of help out there. Talk to people. Like, you are needed on this planet. Like, your presence is needed.
Yes.
That said, some people are in so much pain that you can't even conceive, right? And it's so... I think that judging those people for doing what they're doing is completely you are not judging, but like in general, many people are, right? And so it's not that you have to come back to re-experience it, that it's too much like, oh, it's karma, like, you come back not at all. What happened is when you get your live review in that moment in time, you will be shown the possibility of what could have been had you not done what you did. Right, but what you re-experience in the following life is completely up to you. Like you make choices of some of the things that you want to come back, and so you could be like, okay, well, I did this in this past life. My next reincarnation, like, I'm not gonna re-deal with this right away, right? I want to experience like 2 or 3 lives of ease, and then maybe I'll re-experience a little bit of this harshness that I had to just see if I can do better, right? But it doesn't have to be right away.
Yeah, then there's the thought of, that was the individual soul perspective, if you will, but then there's maybe the soul contracts with others that had to be done to be part of other people's experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the soul contract things really takes you on this whole completely different things because it's a soul contract. I always tell people, I'm like, yes, those are kind of real, but at the same time, like, let it be.
Yes.
Because otherwise you're going to go crazy trying to think, oh, I have a soul contract with that person. And then I've seen too many people staying in a very horrible situation out of the fact that they thought this was a soul contract.
Yeah, but I also, my thought on that, again, just having fun with the conversation is, even as you say we have these contracts, by the way, we're talking about jobs on the other side. Is there like a lawyer up there that's reviewing these contracts? Because
that's funny.
we don't have any soul litigation.
I'm not. I do not. I've never seen that. Actually, I should ask him.
Yeah, let me know if there's litigation.
Like a sign here.
Like, you broke that contract. You're going to spend 10 years over here. What the heck was I saying in regards to what were we just talking about?
The soul contract.
Yeah, the soul contract of, I guess, when I was saying like the lessons. Oh no, sorry. Okay, so when it says we get tied to a certain relationship because it's a soul contract, I feel and believe that, okay, when you get tied with someone, there might be a soul contract, but they were the only purpose, if you will, was to have that time together, where it was like it ends, but that was it, and you served it there. Doesn't mean that has to be forever. Like, okay, maybe our soul contract was 6 months. Maybe it was I had to go through this relationship for a year to break up with you, to have that experience after, and we served its purpose, not good, bad, ugly. It's just I pulled from that. It is what it is, but I also learned from it. It's like how you view that experience. So it's like I believe some people are put into our lives to have lifelong experiences. Like I have friends that are going to be I know they're going to be my friend forever. We're always going to be that, which is beautiful. Then there's relationships that could be good or bad, however you want to define it in your human skin, that served its purpose in that time frame.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like I think it's thinking of like, okay, just because I have this doesn't mean it's a contract forever. Maybe this is just a thought. I guess maybe it's just like it's
I agree with you. I agree with you. But and what happened is like it happens a lot in readings where people will ask me the specific questions, right? And they get very surprised about like they're like, oh, what's my purpose? Or what's my purpose in this relationship? Or what? People think like, oh, it's to stay or it's to help but sometimes it's not. Sometimes, let's say you have a soul contract with someone, right? And you're entering into a relationship, like a marriage or just a partnership or whatever that might be. And you are thinking, oh, this relationship is about me being better and it's about me like growing and the whole thing. But maybe the center of the relationship, the contract that you had is you were supposed to be the asshole in a relationship.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was your job. Your job was to be so bad that this person would leave you. And out of this, they have learned how to stand up for themselves.
Yeah, and reciprocally, if hopefully you make the lesson. Sometimes you don't, and maybe not learning the lesson is part of the lesson. So it's like there's so many layers to it.
At the same time, you have to be careful. Like it doesn't mean that you shouldn't check your behavior and be a kind person.
Oh yeah,
in your
don't be an asshole.
Like, don't be an asshole.
Please, don't be an asshole.
No,
we're not saying we're not giving you.
It wouldn't give you a pass for any of that. But it's like so. All of those terms like soul contracts, soulmates, like twin flames, all that stuff. I'm like, I always tell people, stay away from those terms.
Yeah, and I think it comes back, full circle to what we said earlier about it, listening to that first blink of intuition, and feeling that and what feels good. And it's like I think playing into the intuition and what feels good and trusting that will guide us in the right direction. It's just a matter of just listening to ourselves and not listening too much to the noise that follows. And that's the chaotic idea of just, the annoying roommate in our head. So it's it all kind of like ties together, and I don't know, we're figuring this shit out, whatever this shit is. And at the end of the day, I believe it's going to have a lovely precipice to the story. I think it's going to be great.
Your life?
In general, after this, in general, like the whole being, the whole existence here and whatever happens next, I think we're all good. That's how I feel. I mean, the soul is the soul. Whatever we experience in here, we don't get to take with us. So, well, that's why I'm trying to like shed a lot here before I get there, and I've been working on that for a while, whatever that means. So, I want to thank you for hopping on again. I'm sure you're welcome. That was awesome. I'm sure there's going to be another episode at some point. The door's always open for you. So, absolutely, I want to thank you for being here and sharing some of your knowledge and your experience and just spending time with me. And if there's anything you feel like you want to get off your chest, feel free. Can I share some of the things that are coming up? Of course, yeah. Is that great? Yeah, of course, yeah. Because one of the things that has been happening is my community has grown so incredibly much that when I release readings for people to book, like it's just a rush. It's just been a mess because it's like it's only one of me and so many few sessions, and then I have like
thousands and thousands of people who want to have readings with me. So that said, we're like, okay, what do? We've tried so many different things to try to make it less chaotic, and there's always somebody that just is not happy. So what we decided to do is there's two things. We are starting in February. We're starting.
That's your camera there in case you want to look at it.
Oh no, I've been looking at this one.
Yeah, well,
no.
it'll make it work. It'll still work because we'll have the wide shot. Don't worry about it.
All right, that's good. Okay, so what we are doing is we are starting a membership platform starting in February. Registration will open up in January, and the membership platform will be something that's, first of all, more financially affordable for people. It'll be 4 months. I think it's like $99 for 4 months, and I'll be doing tons of offering in it. Like there'll be I'll be doing 2 group readings per month, where you get a chance to maybe get a question answered, workshops, coffee talks, live Q&As, intuitive like exercises, and some other stuff that would be behind the scenes. So there's a lot of offering in it so that people can feel a little bit more part of the community, and can get to know people better, but also it's more affordable. Beautiful. So we're opening the registration in January. So this will air before that. So just go on my mailing list on my website, and it should give you a spot to just put your name for the interest list for that.
Beautiful, yeah.
And I'm also writing a book, by the way, with an editor.
Damn, you got a lot
and
going on
I have a lot going on, and the book is about the afterlife. So I'm working with an
shopping.
editor right now. They're going out to, they're
yeah.
shopping it out to a publisher in March. So
Sweet.
I know it's there's a lot.
That's fine. I mean, again, if any of this resonates with anyone listening, your links I'll put them in the description of the show notes wherever you're listening, Spotify, Apple. And if you are listening, you like the episode, you like the show. Again, I always forget to say this. I'm getting better at it. Write a review if you like it. Hopefully, write a 5-star review. Support
Do that for
We'll
sure.
get the show out there if you like our conversations. And I want to thank you again for being here and letting me sit on this side because I have a pimple patch on my left side. So
That's what it was.
Shout out to the
I'm just thinking, and also, dude, I've been talking to this camera instead of this one. I was
didn't
like, that's too bad. You didn't tell me.
No, because that camera actually still works because it's a wide shot, so we can still punch into you over there. There's 3 cameras in this room. Thank you, shout out to Spotify. Thank you, Spotify, for hosting us.
Yeah, thank you, Spotify, for doing that.
Dead Talks, and there'll be another episode every week, baby. Monday mornings, Monday at midnight. There we go. So bye, guys. I'm out of here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dead Talks. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell. That'll give you updates as to when we post a new video, more episodes, and more content in general. We are streaming on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all that. And also find us on Instagram at Dead Talks Podcast or www.deadtalks.net. Thank you so much.